On this episode of the Phoenix Magazine podcast, we dive into the brand new September-October issue, the Foodie Bucket List. Today's episode is brought to you by Garrison Brothers Bourbon. The HyeFashioned Takeover is Garrison Brothers' celebration of America's favorite cocktail, the Old Fashioned. Bars and restaurants will create innovative old-fashioned specials that feature Garrison Brothers handcrafted bourbons. And as you embark on a high-fashion journey, don't forget to share your experience on Instagram and Facebook. With every post, you become a part of something greater. Garrison Brothers will make a donation of $2 for every post to Boot Campaign to support their life-changing programs for veterans and military families. Follow these 3 steps to share your high-fashion experience at participating locations. First, take a picture of your high-fashion cocktail, or take a few. Number 2, tag and follow Garrison Bros and at Boot Campaign. And then 3, use the hashtag HyeFashioned to showcase your love for this iconic cocktail and help raise money for Boot Campaign. Every post counts as an entry for a chance to win a unique Garrison Brothers prize package. This one-of-a-kind prize package will include a custom-engraved barrel stave, 4 Garrison Brothers Glencairn glasses, an embroidered Garrison Brothers apron, and a $50 gift card from Boot Campaign to be used on their website, shop.bootcampaign.org. 10 winners who post the most during the month of September on Instagram and Facebook collectively will be selected at the conclusion of the program. Please make sure your account or the account you post from is public so that we can keep track of the donations. Participating locations in the Phoenix area include Crown Public House, Liberty Station, Pitch Scottsdale, and Pitch Cavasson, just to name a few. For more information, visit the website HyeFashioned.com. That's Hye, HyeFashioned.com. Now here's Craig and Leah joining me on the podcast. All right, we have two very special guests joining me this week on the podcast, in the podcast room here. It's Craig Outhier, our editor-in-chief, Phoenix Magazine, and Leah LeMoine, the managing editor. 2 very fun names. You guys ever get people confused that maybe you're French or Canadian or Louisianan or anything like that?
I wish more often. Not too often.
It doesn't happen?
I like being confused with a Louisianan. It's nice.
And I am a Louisianan from my dad's side. So.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. I nailed it on that one. For those who don't know, the news issue of Phoenix Magazine, now on newsstands, as we're recording this on August 31st, just went on newsstands today. It is all about the cover story has the Foodie Bucket List. And for those who are picking up the magazine or want to get into the fine dining or maybe things that, Leah, explain what the kind of the whole impetus of the Foodie Bucket List. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so Craig had this great idea to do a foodie bucket list, and we wanted to make sure we did kind of a mix of things. So some very high-end, luxurious experiences, but also some more affordable, budget-minded things. So that way people, no matter your budget, you can still have a fun foodie bucket list adventure. So we have everything from cheap taco crawls to very expensive prefix menus. So all over the board.
So I went through the issue, and I haven't tried a whole lot of these places. How many have you guys tried?
Most of them.
Quite a bit, actually, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. It's kind of it's sort of the product of years of research, I guess, and
yeah, because
a way to download everything that, we've done and our food writers have done. Leah wrote a good portion of it. Then our dining critic, Nick Buchanan, did a lot of the lifting, and then Marilyn Hawks, one of our other writers, too. But yeah, I've done all those in-town, tasting menu type situations. Those are all great. I've done them. Have you done them? I haven't done Christopher's. I haven't been there yet.
Oh, you should.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't done a lot because I'm a much pickier eater than Craig. So Craig is the easiest going eater I know.
Yeah, Leah doesn't like spicy food.
Craig will try anything, right?
Yes, he will.
What else do you like? Eggs?
I don't like eggs, and
what the hell?
And I don't like raw proteins.
Doesn't like so sushi.
I don't love sushi, and I don't love like a carpaccio or a tartare.
So that eliminates a couple of those in there. What was it, Shinbei and High Noon?
Yeah, High Noon. Any of the elite sushi places.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
So if money was no object of some of those places that you feature right at the front of the article, what would it be? What would you go for if you had to pick?
Yeah, Binkley's or Shinbei. Those are those are amazing experiences. And then what else? I mean, it wasn't just the high end.
Yeah, you had that stay at Terra Farm feature in there, which is a little spendy, but like if money was no object, that would be amazing, right?
100%. And actually, like if you factor in the extremely personalized service that you get there, and they're cooking a gourmet meal for you every meal and giving you snacks and cigars and wine tastings, like it actually is a good deal. It's crazy to say that, but for all that you get, it is.
Yeah, they seem to just pamper you as soon as you get out of your car, right?
Yes, they're like, here's some champagne, welcome. Would you like some freshly baked cookies? Like, yes, please, thank you.
You can toss a football around on the lawn.
Yes.
It's fun. There's a lot to do there. They were, initially they had an idea for a winery, but then there was a storm, I think, that destroyed the vineyard.
Yeah, agriculture.
And that's kind of in the Prescott area, is that?
It is. It's outside of Prescott on this very large ancestral family estate, and they built a beautiful home out there, but not just a home. I mean, it's a compound, really.
Yes.
A nice compound.
Yeah.
Luxury compound.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
So it's great. Yeah, great experience. Of all the bucket list experiences in the magazine or in the article that you wrote, I think that's probably the most classic.
Yes. And it's the most unique, I think, too.
Yeah,
and how inclusive it is.
Probably expensive.
Yes.
That'd be one you'd brag about for a while,
100%,
right? And
yes.
look forward to, and just kind of remember the good time that you had there. Right after that, the kind of along the same lines, the stay at Arcasani for a month. I was reading that, kind of thinking like that might be like a perfect setting for like a Survivor type reality show,
Yes.
It's a strange little scene.
Who can survive growing their own food for a month, right?
Yeah. I mean, Arcasani itself is, a must-visit place in Arizona. It's such an odd, experience. It was invented by the architect Pallas Larry, and it was a arcology, a experimental self-contained city. And you go there, and there's part of it's a amphitheater or kind of an outdoor-indoor performance space surrounded by apartments. So they had a music festival out there for a couple of years called Form. That was awesome, and it was the first time I'd seen it. But there are people that live out there. They're architecture students and I guess acolytes of Pallas Larry, and they've managed to make a go of it over the years. So they had this program for a month. You can live there, work on their farm, cook, and it's surprisingly inexpensive. It's like what, $1,500?
Yeah, $1,750.
Right, which is kind of cheaper than life.
Yes.
You are working. That is one thing.
Right. But learning skills, marketable skills.
I mean,
we've talked a lot of on the other magazine, Phoenix Home and Garden. A lot of architects and builders and stuff kind of learn by living there for a month or a summer or something along those lines.
Yeah. So it was a fun feature. The fun thing for me for this magazine was debating what to put on the cover. We usually we have a cover idea set. We shoot for the cover. When we send photographers out to shoot the feature, they are consciously taking cover shots that would look good in the cover, shots that have that, that vertical perspective.
For sure.
And this time we were pretty certain the Foodie Bucket List would be the cover, but we also had this true crime history story that a local writer named Dawson Fearnow, I think it's Fearnow. We were debating if it's Fear No or Fear Now.
Right.
We'll go with Fear Now since he writes about
sounds like
the
a horror.
mafia. Yeah.
It sounds like a horror, Saturday morning horror movies with Dawson Fearnow, something like that. I don't know.
He would love that.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is a best lawyers issue. We have this list of Valley lawyers. It was a vote. We thought, hey, why not pair the best lawyers list with some kind of heavy true crime story, something. So we had Dawson, who he's a local writer, and he has a real affinity for true crime and mostly the mob history in Phoenix, the various car bombings and so forth.
Yeah, what an unbelievable story. It kind of makes you wonder, how many of these bad guys are still living among us? I'm sure there's a lot.
Well, specifically, he approached the idea of the witness protection program. Yeah. So they're sort of reformed bad guys. And Arizona's role in that, the history of the witness protection program, when a mob thug decides to turn state's evidence on his former colleagues. What happens to them after they testify in court? They get new identities. Often it seems like they're sent out here. So he kind of dug into the history of that, and there is kind of a rich history of mob, mob turncoats finding sanctuary in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And he got into that. So we great story. So we also did an illustration of that story. It's a history story, so we have all these black and white photos, but we also wanted something that might be cover worthy. So we Morel Inglefield, the art director, did this composite art piece that we wanted to have the same kind of look, generally energy, as a Pulp Fiction cover. So we thought either that or maybe the food. Maybe we could just let them duke it out, give them both broken pull cues, and see which one becomes our cover. And it wasn't really much of a fight at the end of it. I mean, we've got Sammy the Bull in the, it's a cool image. Sammy the Bull, exploding truck. Mm-hmm. But I mean, then you pit that against this beautifully shot piece of haute cuisine on
some foie in wild mushroom soup from Christopher's, right?
Right, on like custom china, and it's like, oh, come on, Sammy the Bull or foie gras? It's got to be the foie. There really wasn't much support at the end for the Sammy the Bull and the exploding truck.
Yeah.
so yeah, we have the. But then it was just a matter of which nice piece of perfectly lit haute cuisine we were going to pick for the cover, and that was always fun too.
Sure.
We had a few candidates.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. The story by Dawson kind of is makes you think about that the term we use, witness protection, because it seems more to be bad guy relocation might be a more appropriate term for that program, because you can't really take the mafia out of the man when you remove the man from the mafia. It seems this is like they're just always up to bad stuff regardless of where they go.
That's an interesting, it's a limiting phenomenon, because the only instances that we're aware of where it didn't work were the ones, like you say, where the mobsters couldn't help themselves and they went back to their old ways, and they for instance, Sammy the Bull started selling ecstasy.
Yeah.
I mean, how low a profile was he really trying to achieve? But then there are maybe the dozens, who knows, maybe hundreds of, of turncoat mobsters who've come here and maybe have laid low. We don't know about them because maybe it's working for them.
Yeah, they've done a good job of it for sure.
So we're not, there's kind of there's a sort of built-in opacity where we don't really know, we're not supposed to know. But when we do, when the program does fail and these guys go back to the, they are, well, I mean, they're, sometimes they're murdered. The exploding truck, then of course we know we're aware of the failures, but the successes will remain that way and remain secret forever. So.
All right. So maybe there's a different perspective on the program. I want to ask you about the Mat Ishbia story, because you wrote about the Sun's new owner, and there's been some criticism. I was like listening to Bill Simmons, and he describes him as having new owner syndrome, just coming in, just flopping the money all over the table and pretending like he knows better. Is that what would you say your takeaway from talking to him was?
Yeah, no, he's a interesting dude. I mean, I definitely was not playing, hanging out at his house or any of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of just his basketball, his basketball mien, I would say that's pretty accurate. He's come in and wanted to make a splash and did. He does know basketball pretty well. He was a player at Michigan State. Walk-on point guard. And
he surrounds himself with all his kind of former teammates and guys that he idolized growing up.
He does. Isaiah Thomas, who was the great Detroit Pistons point guard, is on his board of the mortgage company he owns. Several of the guys he played with at Michigan State, national championship team 2000, work for him at United Wholesale Mortgage, which he owns. He described himself as the, quote unquote, small, short, smart point guard.
Yeah.
Who understood the game, was very useful in practices because he could play the, for instance, Mateen Cleaves was their big star. if they knew who was guarding Mateen Cleaves, he'd play the patsy. He'd play that defender. They tried to scheme for what the team would do that was playing Michigan State. He'd do that stuff. He understood the X's and O's. He actually was a student coach after playing for a little bit. I think he entertained the idea of being a coach. So he definitely knows more about the game than the average owner. Yeah, to me it was like he's one of the first modern NBA owners in the sense that he's very young. He's the youngest NBA majority owner at this point. He's 43. He's modern in the sense that he's not from here. Like every previous Suns owner has had pretty deep Valley roots.
Sure.
You had Jerry Colangelo, who moved to the Valley in the '60s to coach the Suns, and became their general manager. And his roots were quite deep by the time he became the owner. Before that, the owners were the original owners of the team were all local guys with local money. So Mat Ishbia, and then of course Robert Sarver is from Tucson, Arizona guy. Mat Ishbia is the first owner who's truly kind of a carpetbagger. I don't mean that in a negative way, but he's from a different part of the country. He was one of the it's become owning a sports team has become not just a rich man's game, obscenely rich man's game. You can't just find the local millionaire to buy it. You've got to maybe reach across a continent or an ocean to find that person who has, in this case, I think it was $4.3 billion.
Yeah, something in the $4 billion.
Something in the $4 billion range, right. And I asked him that. He said, it wasn't just that it was the only team available. He says that the Suns are an elite. He's, portrays the team or thinks of the team in the market as an elite NBA market, and he was absolutely thrilled that they were available and surprised. He liked the idea of owning a team that had Devin Booker under contract for several years, who's also from Michigan.
Michigan guy, yeah.
And clearly one of the bright young stars in the league. So, he didn't he poo-pooed the notion that it was, just the team that was available. It wasn't like just the Memphis Grizzlies came up for sale and I guess I'll buy them. That being said, I think he's going to remain a Michigan guy primarily. His United Wholesale Mortgage is Detroit-based, Pontiac, Michigan-based, and he's building a rather large house there, from what I understand, still. And
I've heard the details on this. It's just like a little kid's dream,
right.
And it's like. So I think he's got 3 or 4 kids, and
3 kids, yeah.
Man, they are lucky to have him as a dad. This is like a Wonderland type of place. It's obscene the details on this.
And he has
good for them.
The way he describes it, he has his buddies and his boys from the team who work for him bring their families over a lot. So it sounds like the kind of place that he wanted.
Heck yeah.
It's going to be an interesting season. This is the first full season he'll be owner. He also got Bradley Beal over the offseason, as you're aware.
It's one of those things as a diehard Suns fan that I am in. My house is we're diehard Suns fans.
Right.
We cannot wait. We've been so anticipating this season for all summer, and we've had this great playoff run, or not playoff, but baseball team here. Fighting for a playoff. Football season starting. When is basketball season? We cannot wait for basketball around here,
sure.
And that is saying something. That is how.
To Ishbia's point, I think this is a basketball market. They're the first big pro sports team to come here. People love the Suns, I think, on a level that even they don't love the Diamondbacks or the Cardinals. Certainly those teams have their diehard fans, but the Suns' roots go, I think, a little deeper. And, we've never had a championship here in 55 years. It's a pretty long run to go dry. So but the way that Mat Ishbia describes it, he has this kind of vision for Phoenix becoming, a market that can compete for free agents. That's a big thing, right? They can compete for free agents, bring the best players in here. He thinks we can compete with the lights of New York and Los Angeles. We can avenge ourselves on them. I think that's part of his vision, and I think he's going to find a lot of takers for that vision. If he can make it come true, obviously everyone will be elated. And when you hear him, he has this kind of evangelical energy about it, makes you want to believe.
Craig, could we do a Suns podcast throughout the regular season this year?
Maybe Matt could be the guest host.
Yeah, bring in Matt. Yeah, for sure.
One thing that I found really interesting in Craig's article was kind of the contrasts of Ishbia. Like, on the one hand, he's very cerebral and approaches the game that way, but then on the other hand, he's having like little tantrums and fights with people. So I think that's very compelling psychologically and certainly to watch.
I think she's thinking of the scene in the playoffs last year where Ishbia had the ball. It was like a loose ball, and
you can't ever take that energy, that gamesmanship out of a former player. They want to be out there, just as much. They just age and everything caught up with them.
Jokic pulled they fought for that. Was great. I mean, it was definitely an interesting entree into the stage of professional basketball in Phoenix
on an important national stage with so much. I was at that game, and it was crazy from the tip. So loud in there, and it was one of those things when it happened, you're like, all right, the player, you could see the player, Jokic, because of his size, over there was some sort of commotion, but in the arena, you had no idea who it was until the guy next to him was Isaiah Thomas, the former Piston, and pretty much his best friend, right? He's sitting next to him. You see Isaiah Thomas, so you assumed, the owner, Mat Ishbia, must be there because of their connection. They're always sitting by each other.
Yeah.
So in the arena, we couldn't really tell, and people started getting on their phones and whatever. But obviously on TV, it was much more amplified, and people understood what was going on. I'd always kind of hoped that he pushed for Jokic to get suspended a little bit harder, but he kind of let that kind of slide as a new owner. I don't know if you have that much.
I think he's a player guy.
Standing.
I don't think he wants to go around disciplining players.
Right,
I think he likes players.
Sure.
So that's probably part of it, And of all the rivalries the Suns have, the Nuggets just don't seem like one of the more passionate ones. I think the interesting rivalry now is, and it's not certainly the Cleveland Cavaliers are not a natural rival of the Suns. Different conference, just no intersecting history that anyone has any real bad feelings about. But that team's owned by Dan Gilbert, who's also a Detroit-based mortgage mogul.
The mortgage wars might be the most intense rivalry in any business.
Right.
I mean, more than sports. There's some wild stories.
Their companies have battled and continue to battle.
Yeah.
So that's a subtext that I think is interesting. The Suns and the Cavs will play twice this year because they're in different conferences, and those two games might have an interesting subtext. We'll see.
Yeah, they definitely hate each other. Let's take a quick break to remind you about the HyeFashioned Takeover from Garrison Brothers Bourbon. It's a celebration of America's favorite cocktail, the Old Fashioned. In September, bars and restaurants will create innovative old-fashioned specials that feature Garrison Brothers handcrafted bourbon. I went to pitch Cavasson last week and had the Honeydew old-fashioned made with the Honeydew Garrison Brothers, some Drambuie, honey, simple, fantastic. As you embark on this high fashion journey, just like I did, don't forget to share your experience on Instagram and Facebook. With every post, you become a part of something greater. Garrison Brothers will make a donation of $2 for every post to Boot Campaign to support their life-changing programs for veterans and military families. For more information, go back to the website, HyeFashioned.com. That's HYE. HyeFashioned.com. Let's finish on our other big story, the 7 last-second adventures for summer. Leah, I was kind of going through that. I saw you got the Lubbock assignment. I was kind of like, oh man, Leah, what's going on there? But you actually uncovered some really cool stuff about there. Had you been before, and had you known about some of the things there, or were you surprised by some of the things you found there?
Yeah, I actually volunteered for Lubbock because my partner is from there, so we go there to visit his family a lot. But I'm sure anybody who goes and visits their family, you go to the same 3 places all the time, the same restaurants, and we're not really going out and doing things as much. So I loved seeing the way that the city has grown from when he grew up there to now. There are all these cool wineries. One winery has been around since he was born, 1976, so they're like a pioneer of Texas wine. And I think around 80% of the whole state's wine grapes are grown in the Lubbock area, which is really cool. Texas wine is definitely emerging like Arizona wine. And then I was really most impressed by the Nicolette, which is a cool restaurant started by a Lubbock native who worked in Napa, and we got to dine in this really gorgeous greenhouse. It's on the former estate of an artist, so there's all these cool artistic touches everywhere.
Yeah.
And really good food.
Is that the one that was Bon Appetit Best New Restaurant a couple years ago? Yeah.
Yeah, and just like our people like Charlene Badman, who uses a lot of local Arizona ingredients, he's really passionate about using Texas ingredients. So.
Yeah. Yeah, check out that article because Craig found some places where you can actually go walk around in the summer, right? It's kind of a foreign concept to us Phoenicians.
I mean, here's the weird calculus about traveling in September. I mean, I love traveling in late summer. It's, the crowds are not quite as intense.
Kids are back to school. Yeah.
Well, there's that. I mean, it's still miserable, generally speaking, in Phoenix. But yeah, now that I have kids, it's not really practical because, going on vacation right after school starts never seems to be the right way. So this was kind of conceived as maybe something that, if you don't have kids, or you just have a weekend to get out of town in September, October. There's a few California trips. I love going to California in late summer, early fall. The Santa Ana winds are kicking up. The water's still warm. There aren't as many crowds. Generally, it's cheaper.
Sure.
We do 6 issues a year of Phoenix Magazine, and every one of them has travel content. But I feel like this is, the November, December issue won't have a lot because no one's leaving town. And generally in December, if you don't have to, they're going maybe to someone's grandma's house in the Midwest. But usually not for fun, quote unquote. But this shoulder season time frame we're in, September, October, I think it's a good travel season. So we want to get like a travel piece.
Yeah, some great recommendations in there.
Yeah, and you went to
I have a couple words in that article. Yeah, I went down to Wilcox and Sonoyta for the One Brewery Towns.
Right.
Checked out. When we had, speaking good plug for Arizona Craft Beer Awards
it's
coming
raining
up.
outside.
Yeah.
Wow. I was like, I had my glasses off. I'm like, what's going on?
Breaking news. Craig's breaking news here on the podcast. It's raining, and so Torito Farm, the brewery at Torito Farm had submitted, and I'd never heard of it.
So
before.
it's Wilcox, which is a lot of wine growers are there, but never a brewery that we had heard of.
Yeah.
And there are the idea was there are great beer towns all through Arizona: Prescott, Flagstaff, Tucson, Phoenix. But there are also towns that just have one.
Yep.
And they're a little hard to get to, and they don't have the density, so you're not going on a beer tour. So let's shine the light on those guys. And you found this one in Wilcox, owned by a cardiologist from Tucson called Torito, right?
Yep. Sal Torito and his wife Yuri own this property, and they turned it into a farm that. One of the things that I didn't get in the article, but that I found fascinating was their I forget the name of it, but they host RVs.
Harvest host?
Yeah, Harvest.
Yes.
They're a Harvest host, and they're apparently a really popular Harvest host along the route all over the country. RV travelers can stay at these farms,
right?
And they're one of them.
But how many of those have a winery, a brewery, and a restaurant? So definitely popular.
Fantastic restaurant. They do tours. They have paintball out on the farm. You can go bring your paintball squad and do that. So a lot of stuff to check out down there.
And a couple of guests, if you're not
guest suites.
So I was like, we'll do a bigger piece on them later. That's just a really interesting what they're trying to achieve there.
Yeah,
kind of like
built-in bomb shelters.
Oh, that's interesting.
12 bomb shelters connected to make this whole building that houses the brewery, the guest suites, the kitchen.
And that's what it was
this
before?
Retail store. It was nothing out there. It was just wine growing vineyards,
So it doubles as a bomb shelter?
They repurposed bomb shelters?
They said, they kind of jokingly said it could serve as a, when the zombie apocalypse hits.
Was it a scratch build where they just build it from scratch?
Yep.
Oh, but it's also a bomb shelter.
Yep. No, well, it's built out of bomb shelters.
Oh, I see. They took it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And repurposed
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. That's great.
So it's above ground, but it kind of from above, the way they situated like gravel and dirt and things on top of, it looks like from above that there's nothing there. It's just ground.
Is that like to insulate the units?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Cool. Well, I mean, again, that sounds amazing. It sounds similar to the Terra Farms, maybe on a less, what would you say?
Ultra luxe.
Ultra luxe level or hospitality driven, but it sounds great.
Yeah.
I really want to hit that. Maybe a expanded coverage thing.
Yeah, they do have an Oktoberfest coming up at the end of September, so that's a good opportunity to get out there to Wilcox, check out what they're doing at the Torito farm. And it's funny. One last thing for Leah, the back of the book section on the what's in your chef bag.
Yeah.
So I think it's an intern, but Leah Mosquita, that's not like your pen name
No.
or anything. That's another person, right?
Yeah, it was weird emailing my intern Leah. Hey Leah, it's Leah.
Leah Mosquita. That does sound like a made-up
Leah
name.
Mosquita. Sounds like a soap opera star, I told her.
I like it. So make sure to check out the new issue, Phoenix Magazine, on newsstands now. It's the Foodie Bucket List. Anything else you guys want to add about the issue? I really had a good time reading through all of the bucket list stuff, the travel and the especially the Incognito, the mafia story. Love that stuff. So
there's a reader photo contest.
Yeah, shout out to our winner. I have his name here, Frank Caserta. Mm-hmm. Got a nice shot of the McDowell Mountain sunrise, and
sunrises and sunsets were dominating this year.
Yeah, the magic hour. Good proof that it's okay to shoot into the sun sometimes. Sometimes photographers, mostly photographers, don't like to shoot in the sun, but I guess at sunrise or sunset, it's okay.
Right.
It's gentler, and as Craig put in the intro, like wrinkle removing.
Wrinkle reducing,
Yes.
crevice filling light.
I voted for the photo from Seligman, so Charles, my apologies, my votes were not enough to carry you. Yeah, that's the one right there, the Route 66 photo, and we'll put that
really
up on
cool.
that'll go up online. Everyone can see that on phoenixmag.com.
There's always next year, Charles.
Yeah, always next year. Well, Craig and Leah, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate you.
It's also in this issue of Phoenix Magazine, now on newsstands. Make sure to check out the events section, because we have all the details on the Arizona Craft Beer Awards and Festival coming up October 21st. It's in Glendale. We hope to see you there. You can get your tickets for the beer festival at tickets.phoenixmag.com. Tickets.phoenixmag.com. Just look for the big logo that says Arizona Craft Beer Festival. We're having our awards coming up here in a couple weeks, and we will celebrate them at the festival on October 21st. That'll do it for today's episode of the Phoenix Magazine podcast. God willing, we will see you here next week.